Hi, everybody, and welcome to class for this week. I'm sorry I haven't done a recording in the last little bit. I've just been very, very busy with work and just had to do lots of flying and all my yearly licensing exams, safety and security exams for being a flight attendant. And now just did a trip to Australia. So I'm just recording here from my room in Brisbane. So yeah, just basically 2 weeks of just like insane work, and I was super tired and just really couldn't really do anything good quality in terms of leading a meditation or class. So here I am, somewhat rested, down under, so to speak, in Australia, and I just wanted to record a little class just to forward our studying on Buddhist ethics. So this week, I just want to talk on refuge vows and what they are, just give a bit of a commentary on them and the benefits of taking them and keeping them. So we can just, I don't know how long this will go. Again, usually the classes I do are about an hour. This might be a little shorter. I don't know. I tend to gab a lot. So I always say I'm not going to record a long class. And then before you know, another hour or 75 minutes has gone by. So we'll see. I don't mind making shorter videos that just, if we follow the material and break it down week by week, it can be sort of a kind of a digestible part based on theme or content. What we're working on can be a shorter class, and that's fine too. So we'll see kind of how it goes today. And again, by no means are these sort of exhaustive classes on Buddhist ethics, or more of an introduction. And Buddhist ethics, different levels of vows, Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana vows, commitments, and so forth. Those kinds of values are something, they're a practice, a study, a theory, and a practice that you sort of make part of your life for your whole life as a Buddhist. And so that's part of the practice, is studying these things, putting them into practice, working them out, analyze them, see them, how they work, understanding the benefits, experiencing the benefits, and so forth. So I hope that this is a good introduction on refuge vows and commitments and their benefits today. Okay, so just taking a moment to start, as we usually do, with the Heart Sutra. Okay, so in the essence of Wisdom Sutra, homage to the perfection of wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I have heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir and Mass Vulture's Mountain, together a great assembly of monks and nuns and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Spirit of Augshvara, the Bodhisattva of the Great Being, is looking perfectly at the practice of profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said, Spirit of Augshvara, the Bodhisattva of the Great Being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Augshvara, the Bodhisattva of the Great Being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence, form is empty and emptiness is form. And emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, this all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They are not to produce and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas relying on and abide upon the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas relied perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete Buddhas in state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, unsurpassed mantra, you go to the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gata Gata Paragata Parasamgati Bodhi Soham. Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great being, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Spirit of Augshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good goes something just like that, since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Srilavakshvara, the Bodhisattva of the Great Being, the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so let's just take a moment to do our short meditation here. We can just sort of get ourselves ready, generate merit and purify negativity, that we be able to do a proper study here of our material today. So again, visualizing ourselves seated in a wide open space, ground like lapis lazuli, beautiful blue dome of a clear sky above us. And we're surrounded by all sentient beings of the 6 realms of cyclic existence. So our mother on our left, father on our right, people we love the most behind us to support, people we like the least, have issues with before us as objects of compassion and healing. Then from there, we can think of all the people we know in this life, even our ancestors, going out to people from all over the world, from different backgrounds and so forth. Now moving ahead to all animals in the animal realm, whole natural environment here, ecosystems, the spirit world, sort of the vast territories and realms of the spirit world, like the astral, ethereal, and elemental planes, celestial beings, gods and demigods, and countless beings in lower states of rebirth, like preta beings or hungry ghost beings and hell beings. So just feeling that we're all here together, sort of a sentient being family, meditating. It's a positive energy here being shared amongst us all. Let's just visualize very simple merit field today, which is just visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni up in the sky like a beautiful sun. And he's in the form we usually see him in, sort of the Supreme Nirmanakaya form. So has a golden energy body, 3 robes of a monk in lotus position. He has a begging bowl of medicinal nectar in his left hand. Right hand is touching the earth with the subduing mudra. In a pure light or energy, very, very beautiful. And his heart is his higher Sambhogakaya, or enjoyment body, or beatific, angelic body. So the Buddha Shakyamuni sort of is seen as sort of the male and female yin and yang couple. Conquer Vajradhara and Vajradhatushvari in sexual embrace, beautiful sapphire blue bodies wearing crowns, jewels, and so forth. And between them at heart level, so they're at the heart, like I would say, if it's sort of our size, would be like the equivalent of having the size of an orange or so at our heart, Buddha's heart. And then between them is a small hum letter, H-U-M, or the stylized Tibetan or Sanskrit letter. Softly radiating out light of the 5 elemental colors, so white, yellow, red, green, and blue. For ourselves and all sentient beings, we take refuge here. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving and other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Okay, so generating refuge in bodhicitta here, just taking refuge in the 3 jewels, seeing them as the safe direction to the truth of reality and the ultimate liberation from suffering, which we all seek, true happiness. And doing this with an intention, bodhicitta, awakening mind intention, to do this for the welfare of all beings, that all beings experience the same result. You can visualize that white lights and nectars are coming down from hearts there, Vajradhara and Vajradhatushvari, purifying us of all negativities and bad energy. All this white lights and nectars going out. making all this crystal clear and luminous here in the audience, so to speak, us and all sentient beings. So like a soft moonlight coming down from Buddha. So that's the sort of negative, sort of critical function, so to speak, like just sort of taking away or stripping down, purifying us. And the positive constructive part here is the lights and nectars turned to golden color, like sunshine or sunlight. And this is empowering us, giving us all wisdom, compassion, and power here in love. All these wonderful spiritual values and qualities. So all of us, all beings, we're all shining with this energy, just like Buddha, reflecting sort of his golden energy back, sort of back and forth in a circle of reciprocity, giving and taking here. Manifesting the four immeasurables. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery. May no one ever be separated from their happiness. And may everyone have equanimity, free from hatred and attachment. So again, just sending out to all beings here, love, which is wanting all beings to be happy, compassion, not wanting them to suffer, joy, just knowing the sort of everlasting bliss of nirvana or liberation from suffering, letting go of suffering and reactivity and so forth, and equanimity, sort of the middle way, sort of going between all hope and desire, all attachment and anger or fear, and just having that warm, open, friendly, caring attitude towards all beings. Okay, 7-limb practice here. So prostration, showing respect and devotion to Buddha Shakyamuni. Sort of seeing identity between our divine nature and the Buddha, our own Buddha nature there. Offering, so just emanating beautiful things from our hearts, like flowers and lights and so forth. And it's an offering to the merit field, Buddha Shakyamuni. Confession and rejoicing. So again, standing up, acknowledging our weaknesses and shortcomings and bad karma, and acknowledging this and sort of saying you want to work on purifying this, letting this go, outgrowing all of this, being a better person, self-overcoming, and also rejoicing in the work that you have done and all the sort of goodness and virtue all around you in sentient beings and all the Buddhas too. Now asking Buddhas to stay and to teach us. Just offering up a white lion throne. We're asking the Buddhas and all of our holy beings, all of our teachers to stay with us, and the 8-spoked Dharma chakra, which is for them to continue to teach us and to guide us, to be the light in the darkness of our lives. And finally, dedicating everything that we're doing here may be cause put towards the awakening and liberation of all beings. From our hearts, offering up the mandala, purified universe for the awakening of all beings here. The ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers, a great mountain, four lands, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land, and offered thus. May all beings enjoy such pure lands. Om Idam Guru Radha Mandala come near to you. Me. Send forth this jewel mandala to you, precious Gurus. With this, golden lights and nectars are coming down from Buddha's heart. Again, blessing us, empowering us, giving us spiritual strength, positivity, good energy. It's like a golden light. Moving out, we're like a big web. That's all sentient beings around us. In this positive state, we say Buddha Shakyamuni, you who have synthesis, body synthesis of all Sangha jewels, speech is synthesis of all Dharma jewels, and mind is synthesis of all Buddha jewels. Please grant us your blessings of body, speech, and mind. So this we can visualize Buddha Shakyamuni starts to shrink and get really, really small, like a little piece of gold. Embodiment of all holy beings, all of our teachers. And he comes down to the crown of our head. Slowly turns around, facing the same direction. And then very slowly and gently entering our crown chakra in front of our spine, descending to our heart. And then melts into our root. Feel that all the power, wisdom, and compassion of all the Buddhas becomes one with us. Whole lineage of all teachers and beings that are one with Buddha Shakyamuni enter us into our mind. And feel great, great bliss and spaciousness and great joy. And just sit with a moment, with this sort of experience for a moment. Okay, just a little short meditation here, so coming out. And again, just feel that all this energy and it sort of starts to become integrated, settling, becoming one with us. And we just feel the presence of the Buddhas and all holy beings inside and outside of us. One, that's sort of becoming one with them because we've always been one with them. Okay, so this short practice here, and let's just sort of get into our material for today. So I just wanted to talk about, we gave sort of an introduction on Buddhist ethics a couple classes ago. It's been a couple weeks now. So, and just to give a bit of a background on sort of what Buddhist ethics are, so what vows and commitments are, kind of how they work. And now we'll just start getting into the nuts and bolts of it, which is, I thought the first thing would be looking at our refuge vows and commitments, and the pratimoksha. I think that would be the next class, sort of the pratimoksha vows, or lifetime lay freedom vows that we take, which are connected to the 10 virtuous actions, which are not performing the 10 non-virtuous actions. The 10 virtues are not doing the 10 vices, so to speak. So that's sort of the typical stuff you get in sort of LamRim, an introduction to Buddhism classes and material. So we'll talk a little bit more about that next class. But this class here, I just wanted to go over Buddhist refuge vows. So when you actually, quote unquote, take refuge, like when you go to this is, at least in the Tibetan tradition, I'm teaching this from the perspective of Tibetan Vajrayana tradition, and in particular, one of the 4 schools, the newest Gelugpa, New Karmapa, or Ganden school. So this is what it is for here. So I don't, feel like I'm not sort of pontificating, making these vast claims on behalf of all Buddhist traditions and lineages throughout the world, because there's probably going to be a lot of variation with that. And I'm not a scholar. I'm just sort of a lay practitioner that's been doing this for about 30 years, but, you know, I don't know everything, needless to say. So, but I think a lot of this is standard, that if you go, particularly for the refuge vows, if you go to different traditions, Theravada, Mahayana traditions and so forth, these sorts of sets of vows are going to be held in common. There's going to be little variations and stuff, but it's the general content's the same. So when you go to a temple, let's say you want to become a Buddhist, and a lot of times sorry, I think something might happen with the internet there on the recording. I hope it's okay. This is hotel Wi-Fi problems. If you're ever staying in hotels, you know this. Anyway, what I was saying, hopefully before it wasn't interrupted, and this is some interesting karma there, or obstacle, or maybe just sort of like something to underline here is, of course, when you take refuge in the context of a tantric initiation, for instance, at a Tibetan Buddhist center, or like I say, in terms of doing some kind of a LamRim retreat or so on, this can be done formally or informally. So informally, you just start taking refuge, and technically, once you start, you're sort of officially becoming a Buddhist, so to speak. You are taking refuge. You are saying that it's a lot like an act of belief or something, or a commitment you would get in the Semitic religions, like just saying that you have, as a Protestant Christian, let's say, received Jesus into your heart, that they always say, I believe in Jesus, or I accept Jesus as my savior. Articles of Islam, I don't know very much, but you would say there is only one God and Muhammad is his prophet, or something like that. It's a similar thing where basically you're saying, I am taking refuge in the three jewels, which means I am going, terms of the orientation of my life, that I am taking refuge. In other words, I'm saying that the supreme protection, or the refuge, like the roof over my head for sufferings, where I find true safety, true protection, so forth, I'm moving in a safe direction, so to speak. I'm just using Alexander Berzin's terms, is in the three jewels. So in the Buddha, the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, and then in a bigger sense, Buddha nature and so forth, the teachings themselves that Buddha taught, the Dharma, and then of course the spiritual community, monks and nuns, ordained people, lay people, Buddhists who uphold those teachings and that example of the Buddha. When I'm saying that I'm sort of leaning or taking refuge on that, like I always say, there's like sort of worldly refuge and ultimate refuge. We're taking worldly refuge all the time, when it's dark out, I need a flashlight. When it's raining, I have an umbrella and a raincoat. When I'm sick, I take medicine. Those kinds of worldly sort of simple refuges. Even the negative things, in the sense of forms of addiction or whatever. When I'm lonely, I'm taking refuge in watching TV or something like that. We're always taking refuge all the time. But the point is, this is sort of ultimate refuge, in the sense that we know that the ultimate medicine to my problems, the solution to my problems, finding happiness and being liberated from suffering, how I find that is in the three jewels. So when I finally end up doing this as a real sort of symbolic act, and this is, having studied philosophy of language, the famous English philosopher J.L. Austin in the 50s and 60s, big founder of ordinary language philosophy, said that you've got language has constative and performative uses. So this sort of, he initiated what they call speech act theory. In other words, we can use language, for instance, to whatever, describe things or refer to things or whatever, like this is a book or blah, 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 this. But he also said language, there's a performative use where it actually creates or institutes things. And the example he gave is like when you get married, and let's say the priest or justice of the peace says, I now pronounce you man and wife or partner and partner or whatever. All of a sudden it's legal, it's binding, you're now married. Something's changed, reality's changed, something's almost been baptized in reality or consecrated. So it's an act. So I do the same thing when I take refuge. Like when I make that act, it's a performative act. Like before I do that, I'm just maybe using it as a constative thing. I can study it, can be a theory of Buddhism, but you're not a quote unquote practicing Buddhist. I can be a Buddhist scholar. I can like it. I can read books. I can say, I love Buddha. He sounds like a great guy. I've got a little here in my hotel room, my little Thai Buddha here, or whatever. Yeah, I can say, I really, I love Buddhism. But, am I a real practicing Buddhist? Do I really take refuge? In other words, do I really believe it? Do I really try and live it? Am I really making this a part of my life? If I am, that's almost a performative use of language in that sense. And then something happens. The moment I really take refuge, I become a different person. And I'm on this educational track towards getting enlightened, which is sort of becoming refuge at that point. Anyway, so there's sort of an informal part, and then there's actually traditionally like a real refuge ceremony. And so this is where following, sort of symbolic, even as a layperson, it's almost like becoming ordained. So if you become ordained, you've taken all the vows and commitments as a monk or nun, and you get your head shaved and get your robes, and there's the whole thing with that. But even as a layperson, when you take refuge, in the Tibetan tradition, you can have a refuge ceremony where they symbolically cut your hair to symbol like shaving your head like a monk or a nun. And then they gave you a name, a spiritual name. You're like being baptized, I guess, in a similar thing. You're reborn with a spiritual name, sort of showing that, the before and after of you becoming, quote unquote, a real Buddhist or a quote unquote pure Buddhist. It's by taking refuge. So once you do that, you are taking these vows and commitments. And this is the plan. So this is like, I don't like using these sort of vulgar things of like going to the gym and signing up with a fitness trainer or what, but I'm just saying it's a similar thing where there's a whole ethic, a sense of rules that bind you, that you commit to becoming a different person. And there's kind of like a rule book or set of recipes that you end up enacting. So the vows and commitments that you take when you take refuge allow you to become a Buddhist. In other words, by following those vows, like embodying those vows, following those rules and commitments, they help you manifest what it's like to be a Buddhist. So in your day-to-day behavior, you think, speak, and act like a Buddhist. You become a Buddhist. People can point and say, hey, that person's like a real Buddhist. Where's the Buddhist in the crowd here? It's that person because of how they think, how they talk, and how they act by manifesting these vows and commitments. So again, that's what's so interesting. There's sort of practice and a performance at the same time, right? And they always say we're practicing. As you know, every practice is a performance, and every performance is a practice. So what are these refuge vows? Again, you can find them anywhere on the internet or Wikipedia or something, but I will read them out here. So there's technically 12 of them, and they're pretty straightforward for the most part. So first one, which is not to go for refuge to teachers who contradict Buddha's view or into samsaric gods. 2, to regard any image of Buddha as an actual Buddha. 3, not to harm others. 4, to regard any Dharma scripture as an actual Dharma jewel. 5, not to allow ourselves to be influenced by people who reject Buddha's teachings. 6, to regard anyone who wears the robes of an ordained person as an actual Sangha jewel. 7, to go for refuge of the 3 jewels again and again, remembering their good qualities and the differences between them. 8, to offer the first portion, whatever we eat and drink, to the 3 jewels, remembering their kindness. 9, with compassion, always encourage others to go for refuge. 10, remembering the benefits of going for refuge, go for refuges 3 times in the day and 3 times during the night. 11, to perform every action with complete trust in the 3 jewels. And 12, never to forsake the 3 jewels, even at the cost of our life or as a joke. Okay, so just going through these, we can just start. So number one, not to go for refuge teachers who contradict Buddha's view or in samsaric God. So this is just this, all of these, we could spend like an entire course in each one of these vows going into all the details with them. But on a practical level, not to go for refuge teachers who contradict Buddha's view. So obviously, if you're trying to be a good Buddhist, a pure Buddhist, but at the same time, you're studying and practicing other vows and commitments. So in other words, uh, you know, they're self-contradicting, and so you're going to breaking your vows and commitments. So if I'm trying to, let's say, as a Buddhist, practice the three higher trainings, the foundation of our path in Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, like moral discipline or ethics, concentration, meditative concentration, and wisdom realizing emptiness. If let's say I have all these different vows of nonviolence, for instance, and that, and at the same time I'm studying and practicing and embodying the values that are opposite to this. In other words, I'm trying to meditate, but at the same time, I'm following some kind of podcast where they say meditation's stupid, watch TV, be completely mindless, do whatever you like, or sort of some nihilistic thing that there's no such thing as karma, ethics don't matter. Most important thing is just to do what you think is what you think brings you pleasure or whatever. These kinds of things, or get angry, express your feelings, don't hold back. If you have to kill people, do that or whatever. Show who's boss. Needless to say, if you are quote unquote going for refuge, like in other words, I'm looking for a release from suffering, the medicine for suffering, liberation from suffering, and finding true happiness. So I'm going in quote unquote safe direction. But in those kinds of teachers, I'm going directly against the grain of my Buddhist practice. I'm undermining all of my effort, right? I want to go to the gym and get in shape. And then my other personal trainer is to whatever, the cake eating champion of the world. And so when I get back from the gym, I'm eating pizza and cheesecake all day, like having a contest. I'm never going to be able to make my fitness goals. It's the same thing with that. So we have to look. And with all of these vows, it gets more subtle. You have to examine your life and just see, is there presence of any of these things in my life? Am I taking refuge in other teachers who directly contradict my Buddhist teachings? If that, then you're being sort of inconsistent. Samsaric God. So this is a harder, what's a samsaric God? Well, it's any kind of being that hasn't escaped or not fully enlightened. And so what I always say with this one is that, in the spirit world, we have all sorts of beings, ancestral beings, local gods in the environment, spirits, fairies, all sorts of stuff, helper spirits or spirit guides or power animals and stuff. From a Buddhist point of view, unless they're enlightened, you can't take an ultimate Buddhist refuge in them. So I always say, I have beings like that in my life as well. And they're part of your spirit family. And they can be very helpful. Like I always say, in the same way as your friends and family and professionals can be helpful. So your ancestor spirits or spirit guides and nature spirits, fairies, your own totem animals or so forth, can love you and care for you and be very, very good guides. But are they enlightened beings? Have they reached nirvana? Have they reached full enlightenment? Are they Buddhas? If they're not, then technically they can't show you the way to full enlightenment in the Buddhist sense. They can't teach you. They haven't had a direct experience of emptiness. At least they're not in our hat. They haven't reached nirvana, or they haven't reached full enlightenment. So consequently, they can't be an expert or a master guide on how to get there. So you shouldn't prioritize their helping, their guidance, their advice over above the Buddhas. Right now, we can use their advice the same way as you can ask your grandmother advice, your best friend advice, your therapist advice, your social worker advice. You can talk to local elected officials. You can talk to your lawyer. You can talk to whatever, healthcare workers. Oh my God, I think I might have cancer. What's the best regimen for this? My dietitian, got high blood pressure. I can ask worldly questions and stuff. So I can do the same thing. Even with psychics and so forth and different spirits channeling them, you can ask some practical worldly advice the same way as ask your friends these kinds of things. But we don't ask them these really, really deep spiritual advice and guidance on the path to enlightenment. That's why you have Buddhist teachers or follow the instructions of the Buddhas and Buddhist divinities. They do that work. So it's kind of the old Christian thing, render to Caesar what's to Caesar, render to God what's to God. So you have to be able to know. Now, sometimes Buddhas appear as these kinds of beings, and that then it gets a little bit more complicated. It's hard to know, but I'm just saying on sort of a more vulgar understanding this, a simple, more common sense understanding this, you have to have a little bit of a priority between what they call mundane beings and super mundane or enlightened beings in terms of what your expectations are, what you're asking, what kind of help, what kind of refuge you're taking. Technically, you can't be taking Buddhist ultimate refuge in these kinds of beings. Okay, so three of the vows here are sort of the same thing, where it's to regard any image of Buddha as an actual Buddha, to regard any Dharma scripture as an actual Dharma scripture or Dharma jewel, and or an ordained person as the actual Sangha jewel. So any like little statues of Buddha or anything like this, technically you actually have to see them as an emanation, they're an Manakaya emanation of the Buddhas themselves. And what it is that they're showing you a symbol of enlightenment. So even though it's appearing on a symbolic level or as a sign, because it's functioning in an educational way along your Dharma path, that's functioning in a way a Buddha would be functioning to help you get enlightened. It's sort of an indirect way Buddhas are guiding you to enlightenment. So it's as real as the Buddha. That's the way the Buddhas are reaching out to you. Same thing with the Dharma jewel. If I've got Dharma books or so forth, I have to see them literally the speech of Buddha. Even Tibetans thought that language itself should be approached that way, because the only way the Buddhas can get a hold of you and teach you, there's such a huge gap between them and you. They have a completely non-conceptual mind perceiving emptiness and conventional reality simultaneously, and we're stuck in our deluded reality. Language is the only bridge between them and you. And I mean that in a wide sense, because they can appear symbolically and through dreams and intuitions and so forth. But on the whole, Buddha taught his students. Your teachers teach you by talking to you. So language itself is something sacred and has to be seen as something sacred. So Tibetans, years ago, even they didn't like, it would be even seen as disrespectful to put books on the floor, throw texts in the garbage. Like they all had to be burned, because it's like, let's honor the holiness of language, because that's how you're going to get, that's the ladder you're going to use to get out of samsara. I think it's extremely profound. And that's the idea of you, even different thinkers, Martin Heidegger talked about this sort of language as the house of being, how things exist as in and through language. You have even poets like famous German poet Stefan George always talked about Rilke being another one, that language itself is an invocation. It creates reality. This is, you can study philosophy of language and see how all this works. So technically, Dharma texts are the Dharma jewel. So that's why they always say, don't put them on the floor, don't step on them, don't have them, see them as something holy, don't have them stacked on the table, and the pizza boxes on top of them, where you put your coffee cup on top of your Buddhist book. It's just like the Bible or the Quran. It's seen as something like a holy text and should be respected as such. And this is your medicine. This is the truth for you to get enlightened. So it has to be respected as such, which is why all religions have sacred texts, and they, like you see even in Judaism, where they put the crowns on the Torah, in the synagogues. Very, very beautiful. Have a whole little house for them, because this is just like the Ark of the Covenant that had the tablets that God gave Moses on Mount Sinai. This is seen as like a direct revelation to you. It's your own inner wisdom coming to you to allow you to self-transcend, self-overcome, self-educate. So it's a holy thing. And then the same thing where you see ordained people, they're showing you the way. They are the externalization of the path itself. You have monks and nuns, or yogis, yoginis, so whatever, lay practitioners, but especially ordained people, monks and nuns, they are the Sangha jewel. They are literally the Sangha jewel. When we talk about taking refuge in Sangha jewel, what we're really taking refuge in is Now, how you wouldn't really know this because how do you know who's seen enlightenment, but seen emptiness, I should say. But technically, the Sangha jewel is you're taking refuge in practitioners who've seen emptiness directly in your community. But symbolically, this is represented by people wearing, are ordained wearing robes. And so you have to see them as, symbols of enlightenment and treat them with that amount of respect. So when you see ordained people, in Buddhist countries, they have all sort of social customs and protocols around them, but we should do that as well and show respect because it's the externalization or manifestation of your path, your life as a Buddhist in another person publicly. They're showing you that symbol. So you're respecting your own awakening by respecting these ordained people. So that's the vow that I have to take for those three things. I see all images of Buddha and all Dharma texts and ordained people as the three jewels themselves. And that's why, like even having Buddha, I mean, you wouldn't have little Buddha statue. You don't put them in the bathroom. I don't, whatever. I mean, I don't want to get, you sound sort of fundamentalist, but I wouldn't, if you have, maybe some, but I should maybe have made me a little bit narrow-minded, but I'm just saying like you always have to see this as being like a literal manifestation of Buddha. So if it was like a Buddha salt shaker and you're like putting it on the hamburger and then you just have it in the kitchen, you just treat it really, really bad. It's like you're disrespecting the Buddha. You have to see them as a real Buddha. And that's why people that do to treat these images as such, the images become blessed and holy and can even teach symbolically, even literally to people around them, right? Okay, that's one. Let's see here. Not allow ourselves to be influenced by people who reject Buddhist teaching. So that's very similar to the first one, is that we're trying to cultivate the Buddhist path and be a pure Buddhist. We don't want to hang around people that don't like Buddhism. So if you're really trying to do this path and you hang around teachers or even people that think it's stupid, very cynical, very nihilist, all they're doing is making fun of Buddhism, saying it's a load of bullshit or whatever, this affects your mind. So again, it's like, half the time you're digging a hole, the other half you're filling it back up. You have to sort of, you don't want to hang around people. You want to hang around people that are supporting you in this venture, not trying to tear you down and create doubt and disillusionment and cynicism and nihilism in your mind by hanging around people like that. And in our nihilistic age, full of irony and sarcasm and kind of meanness, it's very easy to find people on a professional, even private level that can do this and kind of like shatter your faith a little bit. And that's why tantric vows, they say it's not to spend more than 7 days in the house. This is a sort of a person that has a lower scope motivation than a tantric than a Vajrayana practitioner. But more symbolically, it's you don't want to hang around more than a week with people who are rejecting Buddhism. Why? Because as the old adage says, you can tell someone's character by the company that they keep. The seventh Dalai Lama Kelsang Gyatso has that, where he says, what smells like a smelly fart? It's the habits you pick up by being around non-virtuous friends. So if you hang around thieves, you will be a thief. You hang around liars, you will be a liar. You hang around killers, you will start to kill. You hang around nasty gossiping people, you will be a nasty gossiping person. So this is why we have to be very, very careful with the people we spend time with. And if we spend time in a household, like roommates, family, people at work, more than a week, people that don't like Dharma, think it's stupid, make fun of you every time you go to meditate, constantly, criticizing your Dharma books or whatever, after a while, you'll become just like them. And you're like, yeah, meditation's stupid. You're right. What was I thinking? And then, of course, you're no longer a Buddhist. You've broken your vows. So that's why we have this refuge vows for that. To go for refuge again and again, remembering good qualities and the differences between them. So always going for refuge at each moment throughout the day is to just take refuge just in your heart. Just think of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, what they present, the path that you're on, sort of thinking this goal that's bigger than yourself, a goal to which you're orientating yourself on an existential level, what's creating your meaning. It's like Viktor Frankl's, man's search for meaning or person search for meaning with logotherapy. It's like once you find a meaning for your life, your true will, so to speak, it gives you a whole path on which to sort of trod, a whole goal in which to live. It gives meaning to your life, and then you can withstand any kind of suffering or get over any kind of obstacle. If you're taking refuge again and again and again, you're becoming a better Buddhist, and it's also giving your life meaning and really keeping you on the path, laying down the path and keeping you on it. Offer the first portion of what we eat and drink to the three jewels. Remembering their kindness. So from a Buddhist point of view, it's because of the Buddha's blessing you and being kind to you, teaching you that you've created good karma that keeps the merit in your life to receive stuff like food and drink. It's because you're creating good karma, because, in the past and even in this life, that the Buddhists are blessing you by making you positive, giving you an understanding of karma, that you create the virtue energy to receive good things in your life, like food and drink. So by dedicating this, just like it's like saying grace, even in your mind here before you eat, remembering karma, remembering merit, remembering the three jewels, that you keep, paying it forward and like just sort of putting energy into the tank, so to speak, for your practice and your path. So that's why we do that. In the same way, just being, when you say grace, like let's say in a Christian or Jewish household or whatever, or other religions, having a sense of gratitude and not being selfish, have a wider understanding of all the benefits and all the different beings that have given themselves or their work, or just the interdependence of your meal, and that the very fact that you're having meals because of the kindness of others, not the least which, most importantly, of course, is the kindness of the three jewels of Buddha Shakyamuni and so forth. Yes, that it's with compassion, always encourage others to go for refuge. This is a little bit of a hard one in the sense that you don't want to proselytize, though with compassion, in other words, someone's suffering, whatever, your friend or relative, and you're like, well, go for refuge to the Buddha, right? Well, that might not be the most appropriate thing. Obviously, they're not Buddhists, especially nowadays. And you don't want to push it where they're just like, hey, is he trying to make me a Buddhist? What's going on? I'm not interested. It's more, it's maybe a little easier to say if you were in a Buddhist country and everybody's Buddhist, and you would kind of remind them of the three jewels, in particular, the most important Dharma teaching of the unity of, or the interdependence of karma and emptiness, or ultimately emptiness being the medicine and liberation, great liberation from suffering. So can we, with compassion, cause others to go for refuge? Well, you just have to sort of see, like I say, you can kind of teach this in a very sort of secular and non-religious way, where you can teach people just a little bit about karma actions and their effects, teaching people to be a good person, teaching people about their own Buddha nature, the emptiness of their own mind. There's ways of sort of framing this where you can give sort of very basic teachings, Dharma teachings, where people don't even really have to be Buddhist to understand them. And it's on some level, it's sort of an encouragement or support, or introducing them to the notion of refuge, which is beneficial for them. Remembering the benefits of going for refuge, go to at least 3 times a day and 3 times in the night. So this is good to do if you've got 6-session Guru Yoga as a tantric commitment. This is the whole principle for that. Technically, it's if it's 6 times a day, it's every 4 hours. If you're a real good Buddhist in the middle of the night, almost like being Muslim, you get up and pray to Mecca. I think is it 5 times a day? I can't remember. Similar thing here. It's the idea that always remembering to take refuge. So it's like a little bit of ritual here, where 3 times in the day, sort of formally in your mind, take refuge to Buddha. I and all sane beings until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. In your mind, just thinking that 3 times a day, 3 times at night. So you're making 24 hours a day, your mind, that you're taking refuge, you're habitualizing yourself to it, you are becoming refuge, you're embodying this. Perform every action with complete trust in the 3 jewels. And again, if the main teaching of the 3 jewels is karma and emptiness, the fact that because things are empty of nature, they're interdependent causally, and so there's karma, this allows you to have complete faith and trust in the three jewels by understanding karma. So the real refuge is understanding emptiness, knowing what the actions that produce happiness and the actions produce suffering, knowing the difference, what's to be cultivated and what's to be abandoned. So that's that gives you the real confidence and the real sort of justified belief in your day-to-day involvements. And then finally, never forsake the three jewels, even at the cost of life or as a joke. So of course, if you're always being cynical and ironic and joking about the three jewels or about Buddha, it's not really, I remember my mom saying that she read somewhere was it was an Asian, like a Buddhist person, I can't remember, some article about someone in Asia, and they were saying that what was funny is that in traditional Buddhist countries, because Buddha is seen as a teacher rather than some master or god, you don't have this kind of rebellious streak people have where they want to renounce, when they're no longer Buddhists, they want to renounce Buddha, or they somehow want to rebel against Buddha like some kind of super ego or father figure, that people do in Semitic countries where, like even saying, oh my God, or Jesus Christ, or being named, the idea of taking the Lord's name in vain. People don't really do that. They don't, instead of saying, oh, geez, oh, Buddha or whatever, they don't, not negative towards the Buddha in that same way, because Buddha is a teacher and a guide rather than a Lord or anything over and above you. So in a lot of ways, people don't, there was a friend sent me a Saturday Night Live skit where they, sort of this thing where they show Buddha to be this cynical, negative guy. He's just a total fake. So he's acting like, like Yoda, but then you see him swearing and being like talking about trying to pick up women or whatever. And what's interesting about it, whether you think it's funny or not, is just that how that's not done even in Buddhist countries. And it seems funny to do that. And the reason I think it is that Buddha's not commanding you to do that. So, like being like, giving you 10 commandments, and then these are laws that if you break them, you feel guilty because you transgressed a law. Rather, they're, what we call precepts, or they're arts of living that, they're therapeutic modalities, they're medicine. So rebelling or making fun of Buddha and being sarcastic or cynical about the Buddha always seems a little funny, because it's like you really feel that he's not forcing anything on you. He's offering something, just giving guidance or advice if you solicit it. So it's not even like Buddha's coming to the door and say, hey, I'll liberate you from suffering. It's the idea, it's almost like the old yogi on top of the mountain, where you have to go to the Buddha and ask, and then he'll give the guidance of the 4 Arya truths, or 4 noble truths. So it's kind of interesting. So I think this idea of like, mocking the Buddha and mocking Buddhism doesn't come easy. I mean, you can do it, but it's almost like, I think a lot of people see the wisdom even if they're not Buddhist, right? There's this amazing Korean movie called Why Did Bodhidharma Come to the East? And the monk is sort of going through a hard time, and he talks to his Zen master, Korean Zen master, who's this yogi, like a roshi, living on top of this mountain in this like dilapidated monastery, sort of alone. And he's sort of the young monk's kind of like having all these obstacles and problems. And at one point he says, why do you live up here by yourself on top of this mountain, like inaccessibly? And his master hits him with his stick and says, so idiots like you can find me. Anyway, I think that's really cute and funny. So Buddha's the same way. It's not like as a Buddhist you proselytize. You just have the door open. It's like, hey, if you want to learn, here we are. This is what we're offering. This is the wisdom that we can offer you if you're on a quest. You want to find this yourself, find your own inner truth, this liberation from suffering and true happiness. Buddha is the guide to show you that if you go on that quest. So it's a little bit different. But anyway, needs to say that don't forsake the 3 jewels that way as a joke or abandoning it. Because obviously, if you get all cynical and sarcastic and ironic and stuff, you'll lose your faith. If you treat Buddhism like a joke, it'll become a joke. Whatever you manifest, that's how it goes karmically. So if you take it in vain and are really disrespectful towards Buddhism, or again, like I say, see it be this sort of hip, ironic, sort of nihilistic person, then your practice will end up looking that way anyway. And what are you going to get out of it? Absolutely nothing. And because you're just in this life, you're going to die soon or whatever, you've lost this an enormous opportunity to find liberation from suffering. So those are the refuge vows you take. Yes, once you've taken refuge, that's sort of your day-to-day practice. This is, as a Buddhist, this is what you should do. So my first teacher said that actually the best way to generate refuge and keep those refuge vows is to look at the benefits of taking refuge. So if it becomes a little bit of an empty ritual, or you're kind of like, well, I don't know, and it's a little bit boring, or I'm not so inspired, you have to look pragmatically at the results. If you take refuge and you practice these commitments, what are the benefits? What happens in your life? What's the karmic result? What's the cash value in a Jamesian sense? Like what kind of person do you become if you live this way, right? And becoming a pure Buddhist. And so what's interesting is that if this is what it is, then you can, almost like Tantra, where you take the result into the path as a motivation practice to attain the result, kind of like a circle. It's the same thing. By thinking of these benefits, it can actually motivate you to put them into practice in the first place. So there's 8 of them, which is 1, we become a pure Buddhist. 2, we establish the foundation for taking all our vows. 3, we purify negative karma we've accumulated in the past. 4, we daily accumulate a vast amount of merit. 5, we were held back from falling into lower realms. 6, we were protected from harm inflicted by humans and non-humans. 7, we fulfill all of our temporary and ultimate wishes. And 8, we quickly attain the full enlightenment of Buddhahood. So number 1, we become a pure Buddhist. If you practice these refuge vows, you become a Buddhist. When someone says, hey, what's it like to be a Buddhist? Oh, that person there keeping their vows, you become a person like that. Which is beautiful. It's great. You will become an example of the religion in your day-to-day life. 2, we establish a foundation for taking all other vows. All the other vows are built on this. So refuge vows and commitments, that's the concrete floor that we put everything on. The Pratimoksha vows, our Bodhisattva vows, and if you get into Tantra, Tantric vows. So this is the foundation, the right mindset we have you're becoming a pure Buddhist. And then all the other stuff are elaborating on that, or making sort of more complex moves on that. We purify negative karma, obviously, and accumulate merit. So we get rid of all the bad energy by behaving this way, and we're cultivating lots of good energy. We're getting rid of unhappiness and suffering, and we're producing happiness and bliss in our lives. We are held back from falling into lower realms. Well, yeah, if we observe those vows and commitments, we're going to start creating good karma. So we're not going to be creating bad karma that would be as a result for us to take lower rebirth. So it holds us back. And so it is a refuge. It is a protection. We are being protected from these negativities and sufferings, most of all the sufferings of lower realms, right? Preta realm and Helm realm and so forth. We are protected from harm inflicted by humans and non-humans. We're under the umbrella of refuge, which means ultimately you're taking refuge in emptiness and in karma, and the 2 of them together. So again, we will not create the karma to be harmed by humans and non-humans. So don't worry about, like, it doesn't mean that nothing bad will ever happen to you. But again, taking your ultimate refuge, in particular as the Dharma jewel for emptiness, has a complete change of your mind, how you see things, how you take suffering. And in particular, it ends up teaching you that everything is karma and everything's your mind. So you're able to get rid of all the sort of superstitions and fear that come in particular from being worried about non-human entities. So many of my friends is they're scared of ghosts or evil spirits or whatever. But technically, you're protected from that on the most basic level of Buddhism. If you're a Buddhist, you shouldn't fear these things. Fear other people or fear the spirit world. That's part of the benefit of taking refuge. And in particular, if your main practice is emptiness, What are you scared of? Everything's a projection of your mind. You're scared of yourself? I don't know. Nothing's external to that. Then all of our temporary and ultimate wishes are fulfilled. In the end, the ultimate wishes we want and ultimate happiness we want, the ultimate freedom from suffering we want, comes from realizing nirvana and full enlightenment. Refuge allows us to do that. And then we quickly attain full enlightenment of Buddhahood. Of course, this is the more we practice it, the quicker we get enlightened. Okay, so that's, there we go. That's a good start. So those are your vows, refuge vows and commitments. And again, by remembering the benefits that they're easier to keep. And that's just what we do. So that's our little recipe or our action plan of how to be a Buddhist, at least the starting plan of this sort of entering the Buddhist path. How do we become a good Buddhist by practicing the vows and commitments? Okay, just quickly, that's it for this week. And let's just take a moment to dedicate here that the blessings of all holy beings, of the truth of karma, power of our pure spirit intention, bodhicitta, and all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled, and all sentient beings reach enlightenment. And we can think in particular, we're dedicating this that we be able to realize and really practice purely these refuge commitments. Okay, so thanks for coming. All best wishes, and we'll talk to you next time. See you for the next class. Bye-bye.